The alarm clock buzzed at 5 in the morning, just like it did every single day. Maya's hand reached out from under the thin blanket, hitting the snooze button with practiced precision. She didn't want to get up. Her body ached from yesterday's 12-hour shift at the textile factory, and the cold morning air made her small trailer feel like an icebox. But she had no choice. Bills didn't pay themselves, and her younger brother Danny needed new shoes for school. The ones he had were falling apart, held together with duct tape and prayers. Maya dragged herself out of bed and splashed cold water on her face. The hot water heater had broken last month, and she couldn't afford to fix it yet. She looked at herself in the cracked bathroom mirror and sighed. At 28, she felt 40. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hands were rough from constant work. She made 2 simple sandwiches for lunch, one for her and one for Danny. Then she quietly checked on her brother, who was still sleeping in the trailer's only bedroom. She had given him the room 2 years ago when their parents died in a car accident. Since then, she'd been sleeping on the worn-out couch in the living area. Danny was 17 now, just one more year until high school graduation. Maya was determined to give him a better life than the one they had. She worked overtime whenever possible, saved every penny she could, and never complained. At least not out loud. The walk to the factory took 30 minutes. Maya couldn't afford a car, and the bus didn't run early enough for her shift. She didn't mind the walk during summer, but winter mornings were brutal. Today, the November wind cut through her thin jacket like a knife. The jacket was 5 years old, patched in several places, but it was all she had. As she walked past the nice houses on Maple Street, she thought about her own dreams. Before her parents died, Maya had been saving money to go to fashion school. She had notebooks filled with dress designs, sketches of beautiful gowns and elegant suits. She'd always had a talent for sewing, learned from her grandmother who had been a seamstress in Mexico before moving to America. But those dreams felt like a lifetime ago now. These days, she was just trying to survive. The textile factory was a massive gray building that looked as depressing on the outside as it felt on the inside. Maya clocked in at 6 sharp and took her place at machine number 14. The factory made basic clothing, cheap shirts and pants that got sold at discount stores. The work was repetitive and mind-numbing. Feed fabric into the machine, watch it sew, remove the finished piece, repeat. Hour after hour, day after day. Her supervisor, Mrs. Henderson, was a bitter woman who seemed to enjoy making everyone miserable. She walked up and down the rows of machines watching for any mistakes, ready to criticize at the smallest error. "Rodriguez, you're going too slow," Mrs. Henderson snapped around 10 o'clock. "We have quotas to meet." "Speed it up." Maya nodded quietly and worked faster even though her shoulders were already screaming in pain. She couldn't afford to lose this job. It paid minimum wage, but it was steady work. Lunch break came at noon. Maya sat in the corner of the break room eating her sandwich alone. The other workers had formed their own groups over the years, and Maya had never quite fit in. She was too quiet, too focused on just getting through each day. After lunch, Mrs. Henderson called her to the office. Maya's heart sank. Had she done something wrong? "Rodriguez, we need someone to deliver alterations to the country club this evening," Mrs. Henderson said, not looking up from her paperwork. The regular delivery person called in sick. "You'll do it," Maya wanted to refuse. The country club was where all the wealthy people in town went. She'd heard stories from other workers about how rude they could be, how they looked down on anyone who wasn't part of their world. But she couldn't say no, not if she wanted to keep her job. "Yes, ma'am," she said softly. The rest of the day dragged on. By 5 o'clock, Maya's hands were cramping, and her back felt like it might snap in half. But she couldn't go home yet. She had to make that delivery. Mrs. Henderson handed her a large bag filled with altered dresses and suits. "Don't embarrass us," she warned. "These are important clients. Be respectful and invisible. Get in, drop off the clothes, and get out." The country club was on the other side of town, which meant another long walk. Maya's feet were already hurting in her old shoes, but she kept going. The bag was heavy, pulling at her shoulder with every step. By the time she reached the country club, the sun was setting. The building looked like something from a magazine, all white columns and perfectly manicured lawns. Expensive cars filled the parking lot. Maya felt completely out of place. She walked to the service entrance at the back like she'd been instructed. A staff member let her in and pointed toward the main room where several women were having some kind of meeting. Maya carried the bag into the room, keeping her eyes down. But she could feel them staring at her. The women, all dressed in designer clothes with perfect hair and makeup, stopped their conversation to watch her. "Oh, it's the factory girl," one of them said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. She was blonde, maybe in her 40s, wearing more jewelry than Maya would earn in a year. "Look at that jacket," another woman whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's practically falling apart." How embarrassing. Maya's face burned, but she kept her expression neutral. She'd learned long ago that showing emotion only made bullies worse. "Here are your alterations." "Ma'am?" Maya said politely, placing the bag on the table. The blonde woman opened the bag and pulled out a dress. "Let's hope the work is better than your appearance," she said, examining it closely. The other women laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. It was the laugh of people who had never struggled a day in their lives, who thought poverty was some kind of moral failure. Maya wanted to tell them that she worked harder in one day than they probably worked in a month. She wanted to tell them about taking care of her brother, about losing her parents, about still having dreams despite everything. But she stayed silent. "The stitching looks acceptable," the blonde woman finally said, as if she were doing Maya a favor. "You can go now." Maya turned to leave, her head held high despite the humiliation burning in her chest. "Some people just don't know their place," she heard one of the women say behind her. The walk home felt twice as long. Maya's eyes stung with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough in her life. Tears didn't pay bills or put food on the table. When she finally got back to the trailer, Danny was doing homework at their small kitchen table. "Hey, sis," he said, looking up with a smile. "How was work?" Maya forced herself to smile back. "Same as always." "Did you eat dinner?" "Yeah, I made spaghetti. Saved you some." As Maya heated up the leftover spaghetti, she watched her brother return to his homework. He was a good kid, getting decent grades despite everything. He deserved better than this life. Later that night, after Danny went to bed, Maya pulled out her old sketchbook. She hadn't looked at it in months. The pages were filled with dress designs, beautiful creations that existed only in her imagination. She traced one of the drawings with her finger, remembering when she used to believe anything was possible. Maybe those women at the country club were right. Maybe she was foolish to dream of anything more than what she had. But then she thought about her grandmother, who had come to America with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. She thought about her parents, who had always encouraged her to chase her dreams. Maya closed the sketchbook and put it away. Tomorrow she'd wake up at 5, go to the factory, and do it all over again. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark of hope still flickered. She didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change in ways she never could have imagined. Saturday morning arrived like a gift from heaven. Maya didn't have to work at the factory on weekends, which meant she could focus on her side project. For the past year, she'd been making quilts at night after Danny went to bed. It was slow work, done by hand because she couldn't afford a sewing machine of her own. But the quilts sold well at the town market. Each quilt took about 3 weeks to complete, working 2 hours every night. Maya used fabric scraps she collected from the factory's discard bins, pieces that would have been thrown away anyway. She washed them carefully, cut them into patterns, and stitched them together into beautiful designs. Her grandmother had taught her the traditional patterns, passed down through generations. The quilts usually sold for $60 or $70 each. It wasn't much, but every bit helped. Last month's quilt money had paid for Danny's school supplies and put a little extra food on the table. Today Maya had 2 quilts to sell. One was a star pattern in blues and whites, the other a log cabin design in warm browns and reds. She'd stayed up late all week finishing them, her fingers sore from pushing the needle through multiple layers of fabric. "You heading to the market?" Danny asked, pouring himself a bowl of cereal. "Yeah, want to come with me?" Danny shook his head. "Got a group project to work on. Besides, you do better when I'm not there eating all the snacks." Maya laughed. It was true. Last time Danny came along, he'd eaten half the cookies she'd baked to give away as samples. The town market was held every Saturday in the old courthouse square. Local farmers sold vegetables, bakers brought fresh bread, and craftspeople displayed their handmade goods. It was one of Maya's favorite places. Here, nobody cared what kind of car you drove or where you lived. Your work spoke for itself. Maya set up her small booth in her usual spot, spreading the quilts out on a borrowed table. She'd made a simple sign that read "Handmade Quilts, 65, next to the quilts. She displayed some smaller items, pot holders and table runners, priced at $10 and $15. The morning started slow. People walked by, admiring the work but not buying. Maya didn't mind. She enjoyed watching the crowd, seeing families together, listening to the live music from the band that played near the fountain. Around 10:30, a man stopped at her booth. Maya noticed him because he looked different from the usual market crowd. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, wearing worn jeans and a simple flannel shirt. But something about the way he carried himself suggested he wasn't just another shopper looking for a bargain. "These are beautiful," he said, running his hand over the blue and white quilt. "Did you make them yourself?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied. "Each one is completely handmade. No machine stitching." The man looked impressed. "How long does one take?" "About 3 weeks, working a couple hours each night." He picked up the quilt, examining the stitching closely. "The workmanship is incredible. You can't find quality like this anymore. Everything's mass-produced these days." Maya felt herself relax a bit. This man actually appreciated the work, understood the time and skill involved. Most people just saw the price tag and walked away. "My grandmother taught me," Maya explained. "She was a seamstress back in Mexico. She said every stitch should be a little piece of your heart." The man smiled. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman." She was. "She passed away 5 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that." He continued examining the quilt, and Maya could tell he genuinely appreciated it. "I'll take this one," he said finally. "And I'd like to order 2 more if you're taking commissions." Maya's heart jumped. Selling 1 quilt was good. Getting an order for 2 more was amazing. "Of course. What kind of designs were you thinking?" "I run a ranch about 40 miles from here," the man explained. "We're fixing up the old ranch house, and my sister thought handmade quilts would be perfect for the guest bedrooms. Something traditional, Western-themed if possible." "I can definitely do that," Maya said, her mind already spinning with ideas. "Would you want similar colors or different ones for each room?" They spent the next 20 minutes discussing patterns and colors. The man who introduced himself as James knew exactly what he wanted. He wasn't one of those customers who couldn't make up their minds. He was decisive but open to Maya's suggestions. "How much would you charge for a custom piece?" James asked. Maya hesitated. She never knew how to price her work. Too high and people walked away. Too low and she felt like she was giving away her time. "I usually charge $65 for standard quilts," she said carefully. "But custom work takes longer because of the specific patterns and colors." "Maybe 85 each?" James didn't even blink. "That's more than fair. Actually, it's too low for the quality of work you do. I'll pay you $125 for each custom quilt, and I'll pay half up front so you can buy materials." Maya stared at him. "Sir, that's too much." "I couldn't—" "It's not too much," James interrupted gently. "You're undervaluing your skill. I've seen quilts half this quality selling for twice as much in those fancy shops in the city. You should charge what your work is worth." Nobody had ever talked to Maya like this before. Most people tried to haggle her prices down, not up. "I appreciate that," she said quietly. "Really. Thank you." James pulled out his wallet and counted out bills. He paid for the blue quilt and gave her a deposit for the custom orders. It was more cash than Maya usually saw in 2 months. As he was leaving, James turned back. "By the way, do you do other sewing work? Like clothing alterations or custom pieces?" "I work at the textile factory during the week," Maya explained. "But I do alterations sometimes on the side." "Why do you ask?" "The ranch is having a heritage celebration in a few months. We're trying to keep everything authentic to the old Western style. I've been looking for someone who could create some traditional wear, but everyone I've contacted wants to charge ridiculous prices or wants to use modern materials. I need someone who understands craftsmanship." Maya's mind raced. This could be a huge opportunity. "I'd be interested in discussing it," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Great. Here's my number," James said, handing her a business card. "Think about what you'd charge for something like that and give me a call next week." After he left, Maya looked down at the card. It read James Thornton, Thornton Ranch. She'd heard of the Thornton Ranch, everyone in the county had. It was one of the biggest cattle operations in the region. Thousands of acres passed down through generations. The woman at the next booth leaned over. "Do you know who that was?" "James Thornton," Maya said, still looking at the card. "That's the James Thornton." "His family owns half the county. He's probably one of the richest men around here." Maya felt her stomach drop. She'd been talking to him like he was just a regular customer. She hadn't been trying to impress him or act differently. She'd just been herself. Maybe that was a good thing. The rest of the market day went well. Maya sold the brown quilt and several smaller items, but she couldn't stop thinking about her conversation with James. He'd seemed so normal, so down to earth. Not at all like the wealthy people she'd encountered at the country club. When she got home, Danny was sprawled on the couch watching television. "How'd it do?" he asked. Maya showed him the money. His eyes went wide. "Whoa, that's amazing. What happened?" Maya told him about James and the commission orders. She left out the part about him being wealthy. She didn't want Danny getting too excited before she knew if this would really lead to anything. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the possibility of doing more custom work. If she could get a few more clients like James, she might be able to cut back her hours at the factory. Maybe even eventually quit. But she warned herself not to dream too big. She'd learned that lesson before. Hope could be dangerous when you lived paycheck to paycheck. Better to take things one step at a time. Still, as she finally drifted off to sleep, Maya allowed herself a small smile. Today had been a good day. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to look up. The next morning at church, Maya ran into Betty, an older woman who'd known her grandmother. "I heard you talked to James Thornton yesterday," Betty said with a knowing smile. Maya shouldn't have been surprised. In a small town, news traveled fast. "I sold him a quilt," Maya said simply. "He's a good man," Betty told her. "Not like some wealthy folks who forget where they came from. James's father built that ranch from almost nothing. The family remembers what it's like to struggle. His mother still volunteers at the food bank every week." Maya found that comforting somehow. Maybe this wouldn't be like dealing with the country club ladies. Maybe James was different. On Monday morning, back at the factory, Maya's supervisor called her over again. "Rodriguez, those women from the country club called. They want you to deliver their next order too. Apparently you were adequately professional." Mrs. Henderson made it sound like an insult, but Maya didn't care. If they wanted her to deliver, fine. She needed every hour of work she could get. But as she went back to her machine, Maya thought about James's words. "You should charge what your work is worth." Maybe he was right. Maybe she'd been undervaluing herself for too long, letting fear keep her small. Her grandmother always said that respecting yourself was the first step to getting others to respect you. Maya decided she'd call James on Wednesday, after she'd had time to think about pricing for the Western wear. Maya called James on Wednesday evening, just like she'd planned. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the number. She'd spent 3 days researching authentic Western wear, looking up old patterns and traditional techniques. She'd even visited the library to check out books on frontier clothing. James answered on the second ring. "Hello? Hi, Mr. Thornton, this is Maya Rodriguez. From the market." "Maya, I'm glad you called. And please call me James. Mr. Thornton makes me feel like I'm 70 years old." Maya relaxed a little. He sounded genuinely happy to hear from her. "I wanted to discuss the Western Wear project. I've done some research and I have some ideas if you'd like to hear them." They talked for almost an hour. James explained his vision for the heritage celebration. He wanted authentic pieces that honored the ranch's history, not costumes that looked fake. Maya suggested several traditional designs: shirts with pearl snap buttons, split riding skirts for the women, vests with hand tooling details. "This sounds perfect," James said enthusiastically. "When can we meet to discuss this in person? I'd like to show you some old photographs we have of my great-grandparents. That might give you inspiration for the designs." They agreed to meet at the market the following Saturday. James said he'd bring the photographs and Maya could show him some sketches she'd work on during the week. Maya hung up feeling excited and terrified at the same time. This was a real opportunity, but it also meant she'd be dealing with someone from a completely different world. What if she messed it up? The next morning at the factory, Maya was still thinking about the project when one of her co-workers, Linda, approached during break. "Is it true you're working with James Thornton?" Linda asked, her voice curious but not unkind. "I sold him a quilt and he commissioned some more work," Maya said carefully. "Be careful," Linda warned. "Rich people aren't like us. They can be nice when they want something, but they don't really care about people like us." Maya wanted to argue, but she barely knew James. Maybe Linda was right. Maybe she was being naive. By Friday, it seemed like everyone in town had heard about Maya and James. At the grocery store, people stared and whispered. At the post office, the clerk gave her a strange look. Small towns were like that. One unusual thing happened and suddenly it was everyone's business. Saturday came and Maya arrived at the market early to set up. She'd stayed up late all week working on sketches for the Western Wear project. Her drawings weren't professional, but they showed her ideas clearly. James arrived right on time, carrying a worn leather folder. He was dressed casually again, jeans and a work shirt, nothing fancy. Maya appreciated that about him. He didn't feel the need to show off his wealth. "I brought the photographs," James said, spreading them out on her table. "This is my great-grandmother Clara and great-grandfather William. They started the ranch in 1892. Maya studied the old black and white photos. Clara wore a simple but elegant dress with a high collar and long sleeves. William had on a vest over a basic shirt with a bandana tied around his neck. "Your great-grandmother was beautiful," Maya said. "She was tough, too. Story goes she once scared off cattle rustlers with just a shotgun and a lot of attitude." They spent an hour going over Maya's sketches, with James making suggestions and Maya taking notes. Other people at the market noticed them talking. Maya could feel the stares, hear the whispers. A woman walked past and said loud enough to be heard, "Some people sure know how to climb the social ladder." Maya's face burned, but James either didn't hear or pretended not to. He kept his focus on the sketches, asking questions about fabric and construction methods. "These are excellent," he said finally. "You've really captured the authentic feel I was looking for. How much would you charge for the full project?" Maya had agonized over the pricing all week. She quoted him a number that seemed fair for the amount of work involved. "That works for me," James said immediately. "I'll get you a deposit check next week."
"Oh, and I'll need to stop by again in a few weeks to see your progress."
"Would that be okay?" "Of course," Maya said. "I'll have samples ready by then." After James left, the woman at the next booth, Carol, leaned over with a sour expression. "You know people are talking, right?" "I'm just doing business with a client," Maya said quietly. "Sure, business. That's what they all say. A poor factory girl and the richest rancher in the county. You must think you've hit the jackpot." Maya felt anger rising in her chest, but she pushed it down. "I'm providing a service he's willing to pay for." "That's all?" Carol snorted. "Whatever you say. Just don't be surprised when reality hits. People like him don't end up with people like us. He's probably just bored in your entertainment." The word stung because part of Maya worried they might be true. But another part of her was offended. Why couldn't people just accept that this was a business arrangement? Why did everyone have to assume the worst? The gossip got worse over the next few weeks. James came to the market twice more to check on progress, and each time more people stared and whispered. Maya heard the rumors. Some said she was chasing his money. Others said James was taking advantage of a desperate woman. Nobody seemed to believe they were just two people doing business together. At the factory, Mrs. Henderson called Maya into her office one afternoon. "I've been hearing talk around town," the supervisor said, her expression stern. "About you and James Thornton." "We have a business relationship," Maya said firmly. "He commissioned some work from me. I don't care what kind of relationship it is. What I care about is that you're bringing attention to this factory. The country club ladies mentioned your name at their last event. They weren't saying nice things." Maya's heart sank. The country club ladies were important clients. If they were upset, Mrs. Henderson would take it out on her. "I haven't done anything wrong," Maya said. "That may be true, but perception matters. Those women bring us a lot of business. I can't have you upsetting them." Mrs. Henderson leaned back in her chair. "I'm going to have to cut your hours. Just temporarily until this blows over. You can't do that. I need those hours." "I can and I am. Consider yourself lucky I'm not firing you completely. Now get back to work." Maya left the office feeling like she'd been punched in the stomach. Fewer hours meant less money. How would she pay the bills? How would she take care of Danny? That evening, Danny noticed something was wrong immediately. "What happened?" he asked. Maya told him about the hours being cut. Danny's face fell. "This is because of that rancher, isn't it? Maybe you should stop working with him." "No," Maya said firmly. "I'm not going to let gossip control my life. This is a good opportunity and I'm going to see it through." But as the days went on, Maya began to doubt herself. The women at the country club started requesting different delivery people for their alterations. People at the market moved their booths away from hers. Even at church, some families who used to smile at her now looked the other way. One afternoon, Maya was walking home from the factory when a car pulled up beside her. It was one of the country club women, the blonde one who'd mocked her before. The woman rolled down her window. "I hope you know what you're doing, dear. Men like James Thornton don't marry women like you. They have fun with them, then go back to their own kind. You're embarrassing yourself." Before Maya could respond, the woman drove off, leaving Maya standing on the sidewalk, shaking with anger and hurt. That night, Maya seriously considered giving up the project. She could return James's deposit, tell him she couldn't do it anymore. Life would go back to normal. The gossip would die down eventually. But then she thought about her grandmother, who had faced discrimination and hardship her whole life, but never let it break her spirit. She thought about her parents, who had taught her to stand up for herself with dignity. Maya pulled out her sewing supplies and got to work. She was going to finish this project and do it well, not because she was trying to impress James or climb any social ladder, but because she'd given her word, and her word meant something. James called her a few days later. "I heard you've been getting some trouble because of our business arrangement." "Small-town gossip," Maya said, trying to sound casual. "It's nothing. It's not nothing if it's affecting your life. Look, if this is causing you problems, I understand. We can postpone the project or I can find someone else." "No," Maya said quickly. "I want to finish this. I don't quit on my commitments." There was a pause on the line. "You're tougher than most people I know," James said quietly. "But I want you to know, if anyone's giving you serious trouble, you can tell me. I don't like bullies." After they hung up, Maya felt better. At least James understood what she was going through. At least he cared enough to check on her. But the problems weren't over. In fact, they were just beginning. The next week, Maya's landlord stopped by the trailer. "I'm raising your rent," he announced. $50 more a month starting next month. You can't do that. We have a lease. The lease is month to month, and I can raise the rent with 30 days' notice. If you don't like it, you can find somewhere else to live." Maya knew exactly what was happening. The landlord's wife was friends with the country club ladies. This was their way of punishing her. That night, Maya sat at her small kitchen table doing math on a piece of paper. With her reduced hours at the factory and the rent increase. 3 weeks after the rent increase, Maya was barely holding on. She'd picked up every extra shift she could at the factory, despite Mrs. Henderson's cold attitude. She'd sold 2 more quilts at the market, but it wasn't enough. The bills kept coming and her savings were almost gone. She was working on James's project in the evenings, but progress was slower than she'd hoped. Between exhaustion and worry, she couldn't focus like she wanted to. The Western wear pieces were coming along, but not as quickly as she'd promised. It was a Tuesday evening around 7 o'clock when someone knocked on the trailer door. Maya wasn't expecting anyone. Danny was at the library studying with friends, so she was alone. She opened the door to find James standing there, holding a large portfolio case. "James, Mr. Thornton, I wasn't expecting you." Maya suddenly became very aware of how small and shabby her home looked. She'd tried to keep it clean and neat, but there was no hiding the worn furniture, the patched curtains, the general air of poverty. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced," James said. "I tried calling, but your phone went straight to voicemail." Maya's phone had been disconnected 2 days ago. She hadn't been able to pay the bill, but she wasn't about to tell him that. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "Sorry about the mess." "It's not messy at all," James said, looking around. His expression wasn't judgmental, just observant. "You keep a nice home." They sat at the small kitchen table and James pulled out the portfolio. "I brought some additional reference materials I thought might help with the project. Some old drawings and fabric samples my mother saved from my grandmother's things." Maya looked through the materials. They were perfect, exactly what she needed to make the pieces authentic, but she felt a wave of guilt. She was behind schedule and here James was bringing her more help. "I need to be honest with you," Maya said, her voice quiet. "The project is taking longer than I expected. I've been dealing with some personal issues and I haven't been able to work on it as much as I planned. I understand if you want to cancel and find someone else." James looked at her for a long moment. "What kind of personal issues?" "If you don't mind me asking," Maya hesitated. Pride told her to keep her problems to herself. But something about James's expression, genuine concern without pity, made her open up. "My hours got cut at the factory. My landlord raised the rent. Money's been tight and I've had to pick up extra shifts to make ends meet. I'm still committed to finishing your project, it's just taking longer than I hoped." The hours got cut because of our business relationship, James said. It wasn't a question. Maya nodded. The country club ladies weren't happy about it. My supervisor couldn't afford to upset them. James's jaw tightened. That's not right. You shouldn't be punished for doing honest work. It's a small town. People talk. People are cruel, James corrected. There's a difference between talking and deliberately trying to hurt someone. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the night. Maya watched him, wondering what he was thinking. Maybe he was regretting getting involved with someone whose life was so complicated. Maybe he was planning to cancel the project after all. But when James turned back, his expression was determined. I have a proposition for you. And before you say anything, just hear me out. Maya nodded, her heart beating faster. The Heritage Celebration is in 3 months. I need authentic Western wear, not just for the photographs and displays, but for about 20 people who will be participating in demonstrations. Riding exhibitions, roping shows, that kind of thing. He paused. That's a lot more work than what we originally discussed. 20 people? Maya's mind raced, calculating hours and materials. That would take months of work, exactly. Which is why I'm proposing something different. I want to hire you to work on this project full-time for the next 3 months. You'd come to the ranch, use our workshop space, and focus entirely on creating the clothing we need. Maya stared at him. I can't quit my factory job. I need the income. I'd pay you $3,000 a month for 3 months, plus cover the cost of all materials. That's $9,000 total. Far more than you'd make at the factory in the same time. The number made Maya's head spin. $3,000 a month? That was more than twice what she made at the factory, even with full-time hours. That's too much, she said automatically. It's not. Think about it. 20 custom outfits in 3 months means you'd need to work almost full-time to finish. You'd be providing a specialized service that saves me from having to hire multiple seamstresses from the city. If anything, I'm getting a bargain. But what if I can't do it? What if the quality isn't what you expect? James smiled. I've seen your work, Maya. I have complete faith in your ability. But if you're worried, we can put in the contract that I'll pay you weekly. If at any point the quality isn't meeting expectations, we can end the arrangement. Fair? Maya's mind was spinning. This could solve all her immediate problems. She could pay the rent, catch up on bills, maybe even save a little money, but it felt too good to be true. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? This is more than just business. James sat back down at the table. For a moment, he didn't speak, just looked at his hands. When he finally talked, his voice was different, more personal. When I was 8 years old, my father lost almost everything. Bad investments, dishonest partners, some bad luck with the cattle market. We went from comfortable to nearly homeless in less than a year. He looked up at Maya. I remember what it felt like to be the poor kid at school, to wear clothes that didn't fit right because they came from the charity box, to hear people whisper about my family. Maya listened, seeing James in a completely different light. My father managed to rebuild. Took him almost 15 years, but he did it. And he taught me something important. He said that when you've been at the bottom, you have a responsibility to help others who are struggling, not with charity that makes them feel small, but with opportunities that let them help themselves. So this is charity? Maya asked, a bit of defensiveness creeping into her voice. No, James said firmly. This is me needing a service and finding someone talented enough to provide it. But I'm not going to pretend I don't see what you're going through. I'm not going to pretend that offering you fair pay for good work isn't also going to help your situation. That's not charity, Maya. That's just being human. Maya felt tears threatening, but she blinked them back. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Take a day or two. Talk to your brother about it. This is a big decision. After James left, Maya sat at the table for a long time just thinking. $3,000 a month. She could pay off the overdue bills, get her phone turned back on, buy Danny the laptop he needed for school. She could work without the constant stress of wondering how to make ends meet. But it also felt scary. What if she failed? What if the quality wasn't good enough? What if people's gossip got even worse? When Danny came home from the library, Maya told him about the offer. That's amazing, he said immediately. You have to take it. It's not that simple. People already talk about me and James. If I go work at his ranch, imagine what they'll say. Danny's expression turned serious. Who cares what they say? Those people don't pay our bills. They don't help us when we're struggling. Why should their opinions matter? You're 17. You don't understand how complicated it is. I'm 17, not stupid, Danny shot back. I see how hard you work. I see you skipping meals so there's enough food for me. I hear you crying at night when you think I'm asleep. His voice cracked a little. You've been taking care of me since Mom and Dad died. Let someone help you for once. Maya felt the tears come then, and she didn't try to stop them. Danny was right. She'd been so focused on being strong, on handling everything alone, that she'd forgotten it was okay to accept help. It's scary, she admitted. What if I fail? What if you succeed? Danny countered. What if this is the chance you've been waiting for? That night, Maya pulled out her old sketchbooks again, the ones filled with dress designs from before her parents died. She looked at the drawings, remembering the dreams she'd had. She'd wanted to be more than just a factory worker. She'd wanted to create beautiful things, to make a living from her art. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe James's offer was the door opening to that future she'd given up on. The next morning, Maya called James. Her voice was steady when she spoke. I accept your offer. When do I start? Monday work for you? James sounded pleased. I'll have the contract ready and I can show you the workshop space. Monday's perfect. After hanging up, Maya went to the factory to give her notice. Mrs. Henderson looked almost pleased, like she was glad to be rid of the troublemaker. Don't expect to come crawling back when this doesn't work out, the supervisor said coldly. I won't need to, Maya replied with quiet confidence. Walking out of that factory for the last time felt like shedding a heavy coat. Maya knew challenges lay ahead. The gossip would probably get worse before it got better. People would make assumptions and spread rumors. But for the first time in 2 years, Maya felt hope. Real hope. Not just the small spark she'd been nursing, but a genuine flame of possibility. James had shown faith in her abilities when no one else would. He'd offered her not charity, but opportunity. A chance to prove herself, to use. Monday morning came too quickly. Maya stood at the end of her driveway at 7 in the morning, clutching a small bag with her lunch and supplies. James had offered to pick her up since she didn't have a car and the ranch was 40 miles away. She'd almost said no, worried about what the neighbors would think, but Danny had talked sense into her. Stop caring what small-minded people think, he'd said. James's truck pulled up right on time. It wasn't the fancy vehicle Maya expected. It was a working truck, dusty and worn with hay in the back and tools scattered across the seat. Morning, James said with a smile. Ready for your first day? As ready as I'll ever be, Maya replied, climbing into the passenger seat. The drive to the ranch took almost an hour. They talked easily, James asking about her design ideas and Maya sharing her plans for authentic details. He told her about the heritage celebration, how it honored the ranchers and workers who'd built the community generations ago. Most people just see cowboys and horses, James said, but the real story is about families who came here with nothing and built something through hard work and determination. Mexican vaqueros, Native Americans, freed slaves after the Civil War, poor white families from the East. They all contributed to what this region became. Maya appreciated that James understood history wasn't simple. Too often, Western stories forgot about the diverse people who'd actually done the work. When they turned onto the ranch property, Maya's breath caught. The land stretched out forever, rolling hills dotted with cattle, mountains in the distance. The main house was beautiful but not ostentatious, a sprawling ranch-style building that looked like it had grown naturally from the landscape. Wow, Maya said softly. It's something, isn't it? James said. I never get tired of this view. Every morning I wake up grateful. He drove past the main house to a cluster of smaller buildings. This is the workshop area. We do equipment repairs, leather working, that kind of thing. I've set up a space for you in the main workshop building. The workshop was better than Maya could have imagined. James had cleared out an entire corner, setting up a large work table, good lighting, and a professional-grade sewing machine. I know you work by hand for the quilts, James said, but I thought a machine might help for some of the basic seams on this project. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. Maya ran her hand over the machine. It was a quality piece of equipment, the kind she'd dreamed of owning but never thought she'd afford. It's perfect, she said. Thank you. James showed her where the bathroom was, the break room with coffee and snacks, and the storage area where he'd already stocked bolts of fabric in colors appropriate to the period. I wasn't sure what you'd need, so I got a variety. If you need something different, just let me know. As James was giving her the tour, people started arriving for work. Ranch hands, mechanics, office staff. Maya felt self-conscious, wondering what they thought of her being there. But James introduced her to everyone naturally. This is Maya Rodriguez. She's our seamstress for the Heritage Celebration Project. Maya, this is Roberto. He manages the cattle operations. This is Chen, he handles equipment maintenance. That's Patricia, she runs the office. Everyone was friendly, welcoming even. Roberto spoke to her in Spanish, smiling when she responded fluently. Patricia asked about her designs and seemed genuinely interested. James has been talking about this project for months, Patricia said. We're all excited to see what you create. After the introductions, James left Maya to get started. I've got to check on some things, but I'll be around if you need anything. Patricia can help you if I'm not available. Alone in the workshop, Maya took a deep breath. This was real. She was really doing this. She unpacked her sketches and reference materials, laying them out on the work table. Then she started taking measurements from the list James had provided, planning out which pieces to construct first. Maya lost herself in the work. It felt good to focus entirely on creating something, without the stress of factory quotas or supervisor criticism. The quality of the materials made a huge difference too. The fabric was better than anything she'd worked with before. Around noon, Patricia knocked on the doorframe. Lunch break? You're welcome to eat in the break room with everyone. Or James said you might prefer your own space. No pressure either way. Maya had brought her lunch, planning to eat alone. But Patricia's friendly expression made her reconsider. I'll come to the break room, Maya said. The break room was noisy and warm, filled with workers sharing food and conversation. Maya sat at the end of one table eating her simple sandwich. Roberto sat down across from her. So you're from town? He asked. Yeah, lived there my whole life. I grew up not far from here. Been working this ranch for 15 years now. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. I heard some talk about you in town. People saying you're trying to take advantage of James. Maya's stomach clenched. I'm just doing a job. I know. That's why I'm telling you not to worry about those people. James is a good judge of character. If he hired you, it's because you're good at what you do. Roberto smiled. Plus, anyone who's seen the way those country club ladies treat people knows they're not worth listening to. Others at the table nodded in agreement. Chen spoke up. This ranch takes care of people. Fair wages, good treatment. James isn't like other wealthy bosses. He remembers where he came from. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe not everyone would judge her. Maybe she could find acceptance here. That afternoon, James stopped by to check on her progress. Maya showed him the first vest she'd cut out, explaining her construction plans. This is going to be beautiful, James said, examining the pieces. You have a real eye for this. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Earlier you mentioned your father lost everything when you were young. But this ranch, it's huge. How did that happen? James leaned against the work table. My father's family owned this land, but they'd lost most of their money before I was born. The ranch was barely surviving when my dad took it over. He made some business decisions that seemed good at the time but turned out badly. For a few years we were barely holding on. We lived in a small cabin on the property while the big house fell into disrepair. He gestured toward the main building. That house was practically condemned when I was a kid. Roof leaked, walls crumbling. We couldn't afford to fix it. What changed? Maya asked. My father got smart about diversification. He started doing contract grazing for other ranchers, took on repair work, basically did whatever it took to bring in income. My mother started a small business selling beef directly to restaurants. Slowly, year by year, they rebuilt. James looked out the window at the land. By the time I graduated high school, the ranch was stable again. I went to agricultural college, learned modern ranch management, came back and helped implement new systems. Now we're successful, but I never forget those years of struggle. That's why you're so different from other wealthy people I've met, Maya said. You mean the country club crowd? James smiled wryly. A lot of them inherited their money. Never knew what it was like to go without. Not their fault, really. It's hard to understand something you've never experienced. They talked for another hour, James sharing stories about growing up on the ranch, Maya telling him about learning to sew from her grandmother. The conversation felt easy, natural, like talking to an old friend. Over the next few weeks, Maya settled into a routine. James picked her up every morning, they'd talk during the drive. Then she'd work all day on the western wear pieces. The project was coming along beautifully. Each finished piece looked authentic and well-crafted. Maya started eating lunch with the other workers regularly. She learned about their lives, their families, their dreams. Roberto was saving to buy his own small ranch someday. Chen's daughter was studying engineering at university. Patricia was writing a novel in her spare time. They asked about her life too, and Maya found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone since her parents died. She told them about Danny, about her dreams of fashion design, about the struggles of the past 2 years. One day, about a month into the project, James invited Maya to see the cattle operation. They drove out to the far pastures where hundreds of cattle grazed. "This is the heart of everything," James said. "My great-great-grandfather started with 20 head of cattle. Now we run about 2,000. Maya watched the cattle, the workers moving among them with practiced skill. "It's impressive. All of this built from nothing. Not nothing. Built from hard work and the willingness to keep going when things got tough." James looked at her. "Kind of like what you're doing. I'm just sewing clothes. You're building a future. Using your talent to create opportunities. That's not just anything." They drove back as the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Maya felt something shift inside her. This place, these people, this work, it all felt right in a way nothing had felt right since her parents died. James walked her to the workshop to collect her things. As Maya was packing up, he said, "You know, you're welcome here. I don't just mean for this project. I mean, you fit here. The workers like you. You bring good energy to the place." "Thank you," Maya said softly. "That means a lot." On the drive home, James was quieter than usual. Finally, as they neared town, he spoke. 2 months into the project, Maya's life had transformed. She was making steady progress on the Western wear pieces, saving money for the first time in years, and feeling genuinely happy. The gossip hadn't stopped completely, but she'd learned to ignore it. What mattered was her work, her brother, and the surprising friendships she'd formed at the ranch. But she should have known it wouldn't last. The town's annual autumn festival was coming up, a big event that everyone attended. Danny wanted to go, and Maya had agreed, though she felt nervous about being in such a public place. Too many opportunities for uncomfortable encounters. The festival was held in the town square, with craft booths, food vendors, and live music. Maya wore one of her better dresses, nothing fancy but clean and neat. She'd even splurged on a new pair of shoes, her first new shoes in over a year. Danny ran off to meet his friends, leaving Maya to wander alone. She stopped at a few booths, admiring the handmade goods, chatting with vendors she knew from the market. Then she heard a familiar laugh. The blonde woman from the country club, surrounded by her usual group, was standing near the beverage tent. Maya considered turning around, avoiding them entirely, but that felt cowardly. She had every right to be here. She walked toward the tent, planning to get some lemonade and leave quickly. "Well, look who it is," the blonde woman said loudly. "Our little seamstress who's moved up in the world." Maya ignored her, ordering her lemonade from the vendor. "I heard you're working at the Thornton Ranch now," another woman said, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. "How convenient for you." "I'm completing a commission," Maya said calmly. "That's all." "Oh, please," the blonde woman laughed. "We all know what you're really doing. Poor little factory girl sees a rich rancher and suddenly she's always around. It's so transparent." Maya felt her face flush, but she kept her voice steady. "You don't know anything about me or my work." "We know enough," a third woman chimed in. "We know James Thornton has been driving you to the ranch every day. We know you've been spending hours alone with him. Do you really think someone like him is interested in someone like you for your sewing skills?" The small crowd that had gathered around the tent was getting bigger. People were staring, whispering. Maya felt trapped. "James is my employer," Maya said firmly. "Nothing more." "Keep telling yourself that," the blonde woman said. "But when he gets bored and moves on to someone from his own social class, don't come crying to us." Maya opened her mouth to respond when someone else spoke up. "That's enough, Diane." Everyone turned. An older woman, elegantly dressed, was standing behind the group. Maya recognized her from church, Mrs. Patterson, one of the most respected people in town. "This is a community festival," Mrs. Patterson said sternly. "Not a place for petty bullying. You should all be ashamed of yourselves." Diane's face reddened. "We were just making conversation," You were being cruel. There's a difference. Mrs. Patterson walked over to Maya. Don't let these women bother you, dear. They're threatened by anyone who actually works for what they have. But the damage was done. Maya mumbled a thank you to Mrs. Patterson and hurried away from the tent. She could feel everyone's eyes on her, hear the renewed whispers. She found a quiet spot behind one of the booths and tried to compose herself. Her hands were shaking. Why did those women hate her so much? What had she ever done to them? There you are. Maya looked up to see James walking toward her. Her heart sank. Of course he was here. Of course this situation was about to get even more complicated. I've been looking for you, James said with a smile. Then he noticed her expression. What's wrong? Nothing. I was just leaving. Maya, what happened? Before she could answer, Diane and her group appeared around the corner. They stopped short when they saw James. James, we were just talking about you, Diane said, her tone suddenly sugary sweet. I'm sure you were, James said coolly. Did that conversation include harassing Maya? We weren't harassing anyone, Diane protested. We were simply expressing concern. You know how people talk, and we wouldn't want your reputation to suffer because of unfortunate associations. James's expression hardened. Unfortunate associations? You mean associating with someone who works for a living? Someone with actual talent and integrity? The women looked uncomfortable now. They weren't used to James talking to them this way. We just meant, another woman started. I know exactly what you meant, James interrupted. You've been spreading gossip about Maya for months. You've tried to make her life difficult because she had the audacity to work hard and be good at what she does. You're threatened by her because she has something you don't. Genuine character. Now, James, there's no need to be rude, Diane said, trying to maintain her composure. Rude? You want to talk about rude? How about deliberately getting Maya's hours, cut at the factory? How about telling her landlord to raise her rent? How about harassing her at a community event where she has every right to be? The crowd had grown larger now. The entire festival seemed to have paused to watch this confrontation. Maya wanted to disappear into the ground. You don't understand, Diane said defensively. Women like her, they're always trying to. Women like her? James's voice rose. You mean women who work 12-hour days to support their families? Women who create beautiful things with their hands? Women who face adversity with grace and dignity? He turned to face the crowd. Let me make something very clear to everyone here. Maya Rodriguez is working on a major project for the ranch because she's exceptionally talented. She's professional, creative, and skilled. Any gossip suggesting otherwise is just that. Gossip from people with nothing better to do. Diane's face had gone from red to white. We were just concerned for your welfare. My welfare? James laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. My welfare is none of your business. But you know what does concern me? The way this community treats people who are different from you. The way you judge and exclude and bully anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. He walked over to stand next to Maya. This woman has more grace and character in her little finger than most of you have in your entire bodies. She's faced hardship you can't imagine and came through it with her integrity intact. She doesn't deserve your gossip or your judgment. She deserves respect. The silence that followed was deafening. Maya stood frozen, torn between gratitude for James's defense and horror at being the center of such a public scene. Diane gathered her group and walked away quickly, heads held high but faces flushed with embarrassment. The crowd began to disperse, people returning to the festival activities but still casting glances back at Maya and James. I'm sorry, James said quietly. I know I made a scene, but I couldn't stand there and let them talk about you that way. You didn't have to do that, Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I did. Someone needed to say it. Mrs. Patterson approached them. That took courage, James. Your father would be proud. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson. The older woman turned to Maya. Hold your head high, dear. You've done nothing wrong. Don't let small people make you feel small. After Mrs. Patterson left, Maya finally looked at James. This is going to make everything worse. The gossip, the rumors. Let them talk, James said firmly. I'm done caring what people like that think, and you should be too. But Maya knew it wasn't that simple. James could afford not to care. He had money, status, security. She had none of those things. If this town turned completely against her, where would that leave her and Danny? Danny found them a few minutes later. Everyone's talking about what happened. Are you okay, sis? I'm fine, Maya lied. That was awesome what you said, Danny told James admiringly. Those ladies are always so mean to everyone. Someone needed to stand up to them. They left the festival shortly after. James drove them home, the truck cab heavy with unspoken thoughts. When they pulled up to the trailer, James turned to Maya. I meant everything I said back there. You're exceptional, and anyone who can't see that is blind. Thank you, Maya said softly. But you need to understand something. You're standing up for me like that, it's going to make people think we're... She couldn't finish the sentence. That we're what? Friends? Business associates? James paused. Would it be so terrible if people thought we cared about each other? Maya's heart was pounding. James, I'm not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I'm just saying that I respect you, I value your friendship, and I'm not going to apologize for that. If people want to gossip, that's their problem, not ours. After James drove away, Danny sat down next to Maya on the couch. He likes you, Danny said. Like really likes you. It's not that simple. Why not? He's a good person. You're a good person. Why can't it be simple? Maya thought about all the reasons. The social divide, the gossip, the fear of getting hurt. But maybe Danny was right. Maybe she was making it more complicated than it needed to be. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the confrontation at the festival. James's words, the look on his face when he defended her, the way he'd stood beside her against the judgment of his own social circle. No one had ever defended her like that before. No one had ever made her feel like she mattered that much. The next morning, when James picked her up for work, there was a new tension in the air. Something had shifted at the festival. Some invisible line had been crossed. The week after the festival was strange. People in town treated Maya differently now. Some avoided her entirely, crossing the street when they saw her coming. Others were surprisingly kind, nodding hello or offering small smiles. The scene at the festival had forced everyone to pick a side, and the town was divided. Maya tried to focus on her work. The Western Wear project was nearly complete, just a few finishing touches left on the last pieces. In 2 weeks, the Heritage celebration would happen, and her contract with James would end. The thought made her chest feel tight. What would happen after that? Would she go back to the market, selling quilts? Look for another factory job? The past 3 months had shown her what her life could be, and going back to how things were felt impossible. James noticed her quietness. On Thursday afternoon, he came to the workshop and sat down across from her work table. "What's on your mind?" he asked. Maya set down the vest she was hand-stitching. "Just thinking about what comes next, after the celebration." "I've been thinking about that too." James leaned forward. "What if this didn't have to end?" "What do you mean?" "The ranch always needs someone who can do repairs, make custom pieces, that kind of thing. I could create a permanent position for you. Regular salary, benefits, you'd be part of the ranch staff." Maya wanted to say yes immediately, but caution held her back. "James, people are already talking. If I become a permanent employee, the gossip will get even worse. So, let them talk. We know the truth." "But do we?" Maya asked quietly. "What is the truth exactly?" James looked at her for a long moment. "What do you want it to be?" The question hung in the air. Maya felt her heart racing. This was the moment where she had to be honest, with James and with herself. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm grateful for everything you've done for me. You've changed my life. But I can't tell anymore what's gratitude and what's something else." "I can tell you what it is for me," James said softly. "But I don't want to pressure you. You've been through so much, and you're just getting stable again. The last thing you need is me complicating things." "Tell me anyway." Maya said. James stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ranch. When he spoke, his voice was different, more vulnerable than she'd ever heard it. I've dated plenty of women from good families, women my mother approved of, women who looked perfect on paper. But something was always missing. They liked the idea of being with me, the ranch, the lifestyle, but they didn't really see me. He turned back to Maya. You see me. The real me, not the wealthy rancher. When we talk, it's real. When you laugh at my jokes, I know you mean it. When you question my decisions, you're not afraid to challenge me. You treat me like a person, not a status symbol. Maya felt tears forming but blinked them back. These past 3 months, working with you, getting to know you, it's been the happiest I've been in years. You're talented, strong, honest, and kind. You face difficulties with grace. You work hard but never complain. You take care of your brother with such dedication. James's voice grew softer. You're the woman I've been searching for, Maya, and I don't think I'm going to find anyone better. The words struck Maya like a physical force. James, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now. I just needed you to know where I stand. He walked back to the table. But here's what I'm proposing. Not a relationship. Not yet. Just continued partnership. I create a permanent position for you at the ranch doing what you're good at. We keep getting to know each other. No pressure, no expectations. We let things develop naturally, and if they don't develop, that's okay too. Your job won't be dependent on any kind of personal relationship. That's very generous, Maya said carefully. But I need you to understand something. I can't be with someone because I need them financially. I won't be with anyone unless I know my feelings are real, and not just gratitude or dependency. I understand that completely, James said. That's why I'm offering the job regardless. Even if you decide you're not interested in me romantically, the position is yours. I'm separating the two things entirely. How can you do that? How can you separate business from personal feelings? Because I respect you enough to want you in my life even if it's just as a colleague and friend. Your presence makes this place better. Your talent improves what we do here. Those are facts that have nothing to do with my personal feelings. Maya felt something shift inside her chest. This was what she'd been afraid to hope for. Someone who valued her for who she was, not what she could provide or what she represented. I need time, she said finally. Time to finish this project and think about everything. Time to figure out what I really feel. Take all the time you need, James said. I'm not going anywhere. That evening, instead of going straight home, Maya asked James to drop her off at the creek on the edge of town. It was a place she'd gone since childhood, a quiet spot where she could think. Want me to wait? James asked. No, I'll walk home. It's not far. I just need some space to clear my head. I understand. Call me if you need anything. After James drove away, Maya sat on the large flat rock by the water's edge. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She'd come here after her parents died, sat on this same rock and cried until she had no tears left. Now she was here again, but for a different reason. Not grief this time, but confusion mixed with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Did she have feelings for James? Real feelings, not just gratitude or the natural response to someone who'd helped her? She thought about the way her heart beat faster when she saw his truck in the mornings, the way she looked forward to their conversations during the drive, the way she felt safe and valued when she was around him. But was that love? Or was it just relief at finally having someone treat her with kindness and respect? I thought I might find you here. Maya looked up, startled. James was walking toward her. I thought you left, she said. I got halfway down the road and realized something. I said you could take all the time you need, but I didn't say everything I needed to say. He sat down on the rock next to her, careful to leave space between them. Can I tell you a story? Maya nodded. When I was 19, my father had a heart attack. He survived, but the doctors said he needed to reduce stress, take it easy. I came home from college to help run the ranch. James picked up a small stone, turning it over in his hands. There was this woman, Amanda, from a wealthy family in the city. We'd been dating on and off. When she heard my father was sick and I had to come home, she broke up with me. Why? She said she didn't sign up to be a ranch wife. She wanted someone who would live in the city, who would be part of that social scene. She said managing a ranch was beneath her expectations. James tossed the stone into the creek. At the time it hurt, but looking back I'm grateful. She showed me who she really was. What does this have to do with me? When things got hard for you, when people gossiped and judged, you didn't run. You didn't compromise your integrity. You kept working, kept being kind, kept your head up. That taught me more about your character than any easy situation ever could. James turned to face her. I'm not just attracted to you because you're beautiful, though you are. I'm not drawn to you because you need help, though I'm glad I could provide it. I'm drawn to you because of who you are at your core. The way you love your brother. The way you honor your grandmother's memory through your work. The way you treat people with respect, regardless of their status. That's what I've been searching for. Maya felt tears rolling down her cheeks now. I'm scared, James. I'm scared this is too good to be true. I'm scared of people's judgment. I'm scared I'm not enough for your world. My world? James laughed softly. Maya, you're too good for my world. The people in my so-called world spend their time gossiping and judging and protecting their status. You spend your time creating beautiful things and taking care of people you love. If anything, I'm worried I'm not enough for yours. That's ridiculous, is it? You faced real hardship and came through it with grace. You know what actually matters in life. Most people I know have never been tested like that. They have no idea if they'd have your strength. Maya wiped her tears. You're making me sound better than I am. I'm seeing you clearly. Maybe for the first time in your life, someone is actually seeing you for who you really are. James reached out and gently took her hand. You don't have to decide anything tonight. But I want you to know that whatever you're feeling, whatever you need, I'm here. Not as your employer or your benefactor, just as someone who cares about you deeply. They sat in silence for a while, hands linked, watching the last light fade from the sky. Maya felt a peace settle over her that she hadn't experienced in years. Maybe this was what it felt like to be truly seen and valued. I think I have feelings for you, Maya said quietly. Real feelings. But they're mixed up with gratitude and fear and uncertainty. I need time to separate them, to understand what's real. I can wait, James said simply. Even if I decide this isn't what I want? Even then, because your friendship alone is worth waiting for. They sat by the creek until the stars came out. James told her stories about the ranch, about his dreams for expanding their sustainable practices, about his hopes for the future. Maya talked about her design ideas. The 2 weeks before the heritage celebration flew by in a blur of final stitches and preparations. Maya poured everything she had into finishing the Western wear pieces, determined to make them perfect. Each vest, each shirt, each skirt represented not just historical accuracy, but her own journey from struggling seamstress to confident artisan. The night before the celebration, Maya stayed late at the workshop, adding final touches to the last piece. James found her there around 8 in the evening, bent over her work table with a focused expression. You're still here, he said softly, not wanting to startle her. Maya looked up, stretching her back. Just finishing the last details. I want everything to be perfect tomorrow. James walked over and examined the finished pieces hanging on the rack. 20 complete outfits, each one authentic and beautifully crafted. Maya, these are incredible. They're better than anything I imagined. You really think so? I know so. You've created something special here. These aren't just costumes. They're works of art. Maya felt pride swell in her chest. 3 months ago, she'd been a factory worker who sewed quilts at night. Now she was looking at a professional collection of her own creation. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, she said. You changed my life, James. No, he corrected gently. You changed your own life. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it and made something amazing happen. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, surrounded by the fruits of Maya's labor. Have you thought about what we talked about? James asked. About staying on permanently? I have, Maya said. But I want to see tomorrow through first. I want to see your reaction when everything comes together. Then I'll give you my answer. James nodded, accepting her timeline. Fair enough. Can I drive you home? Actually, I think I'll walk tonight. Clear my head, enjoy the evening air. It's dark out. I'll be fine. I've walked these roads my whole life. After James left, Maya packed up her things and started the walk home. The night was cool but pleasant, stars bright overhead. She thought about how much had changed in 3 months. She'd gone from barely surviving to thriving, from feeling invisible to feeling seen, from having no hope to having possibilities spreading out before her like the starlit sky. The heritage celebration started at 10 in the morning. James picked up Maya and Danny early so they could help with final preparations. Danny had been excited about this for weeks, fascinated by the ranch and the horses and everything Western. When they arrived, the ranch was transformed. Dozens of people were already there, setting up demonstrations and displays. Historical photographs lined the walls of the main building. A small stage was set up for presentations. The whole place buzzed with excitement. Maya's pieces were displayed in a special area, each one mounted on a mannequin with information about its historical significance. People were already gathering to admire them. This is amazing, Danny whispered to Maya. You did all this. Patricia came rushing over. Maya, people are already asking about commissioning pieces. I've been taking names and numbers for you. Really? Really, these are stunning. Everyone's impressed. As the celebration got underway, Maya watched people interact with her work. Families took photos with the historical displays. Children asked questions about the Old West. The ranch hands who would be wearing her pieces for the demonstrations praised the fit and authenticity. Around noon, James took the stage to give a speech about the ranch's history and the importance of honoring the past. He talked about his great-grandparents, about the diverse communities that had built the region, about preserving traditional skills and craftsmanship. Then he did something Maya wasn't expecting. I want to recognize someone special who made today possible, James said, looking directly at Maya. Maya Rodriguez took my vague ideas and turned them into something beautiful and authentic. But more than that, she brought heart to this project. Every stitch represents her dedication, her talent, and her respect for history and tradition. The crowd applauded, and Maya felt her face flush. Maya represents what this celebration is really about, James continued. Hard work, skill, determination, and the courage to pursue excellence even when faced with obstacles. The old ranchers and workers we're honoring today had those same qualities. Maya carries on their legacy in her own way. More applause, louder this time. Maya saw people looking at her with respect. Even some of the folks who'd been part of the gossip circuit. Mrs. Patterson caught her eye and gave an approving nod. After the speech, people came up to Maya to congratulate her and ask about her work. She answered questions about her techniques, her inspirations, her future plans. For the first time in her life, Maya felt like a professional, an artisan, not just someone doing odd jobs to survive. The afternoon was filled with demonstrations. Cowboys showed roping techniques. Riders displayed their skills. A blacksmith worked at a portable forge, and through it all, the people wearing Maya's creations looked perfect, like they'd stepped out of history. As the sun began to set and the celebration wound down, James found Maya sitting on the porch of the main house watching the last activities. Tired? He asked, sitting down next to her. Exhausted, but happy. Today was perfect thanks to you. Maya turned to face him. I've made my decision. About the job offer, James's expression became carefully neutral. Okay. I'll accept the permanent position, but with some conditions. Name them. First, I want to be paid fairly but not excessively. If we're going to have any kind of personal relationship, I need to know I'm valued for my work, not supported out of affection. Agreed. We'll set a rate based on what professional seamstresses and designers make in the region. Second, I want the freedom to take outside commissions, to build my own client base and reputation. That makes sense. The ranch won't always keep you busy full-time anyway. Third, Maya paused, gathering her courage. I need you to be patient with me. I do have feelings for you. Real feelings. But I'm still learning to trust them. I need time to let this develop naturally without pressure. James reached over and took her hand. Maya, I'll give you all the time you need. We can take this as slow as you want. Friends first, then see where it goes. You're not disappointed? Disappointed? You just agreed to stay. You just admitted you have feelings for me. Those are two of the best things I've heard in years. Maya laughed, feeling lighter than she had in days. Okay then. It's settled. They sat in comfortable silence, hands linked, watching the celebration wrap up. Danny was helping Patricia fold up tables, chatting excitedly about everything he'd seen. Over the next few months, Maya settled into her new role at the ranch. She set up a proper workshop, invested in quality equipment, and started taking commissions from clients Patricia had connected her with. Word spread about her talent, and soon she had more work than she could handle. She and James grew closer gradually, naturally. They had dinner together once a week. They took walks around the ranch. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. There were no dramatic declarations or rushed decisions. Just two people getting to know each other, building something real on a foundation of friendship and respect. The town gossip eventually died down. Some people never came around, but Maya realized she didn't need everyone's approval. She had friends at the ranch. She had clients who respected her work. She had Danny, who was thriving now that financial stress was gone. 6 months after the heritage celebration, Maya opened a small boutique in town. It was just a modest shop, but it was hers. She sold custom pieces, offered alteration services, and taught sewing classes to young people on Saturday mornings. The day of the grand opening, the shop was packed. Patricia came along with Roberto, Chen, and many of the ranch workers. Mrs. Patterson brought half the church congregation. Even some of the country club ladies showed up, though Maya suspected they came more out of curiosity than support. James was there too, hanging back and letting Maya have her moment. When the crowd thinned out, he approached the counter. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "Your own business. Your grandmother would be so proud. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. It just would have taken longer. But you would have gotten here eventually. This talent, this determination, it was always in you." 1 year after they met, James asked Maya to dinner at a fancy restaurant in the city. She dressed in one of her own creations, a simple but elegant dress that she'd designed and sewn herself. Over dessert, James got serious. "I have something to ask you." Maya's heart started beating faster. "We've been taking things slow like you wanted. We've built a friendship first. We've gotten to know each other deeply, and every day I'm more certain that what I feel for you is real and lasting." He reached across the table for her hand. "I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. But I am asking you to officially be my partner. Not just business, not just friends. I want everyone to know that you're the person I've chosen, and I'm the person you've chosen." Maya felt tears forming, but they were happy tears. "I choose you, James. Not because of what you can provide or what you represent. I choose you because you make me laugh. Because you see me for who I really am. Because you challenge me to be better. Because when I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself." Is that a yes? That's definitely a yes.